Brendan Dassey trial transcript, day 2, page 152, continued questioning of John Ertl by prosecuting attorney Fallon. And the box was given to whom? Do you recall? At that very moment, it was placed in our field response van. Very good. What was the next assignment or that you participated in? Around 3 p.m., we got a request to use our sifting equipment. They had found an area, a burn pit type area behind the garage next to Steven Avery's trailer, and they had been looking in there and they wanted to use our sifters. We had previously loaned them out for another assignment in the gravel yard, and so they had asked for them again. And at that moment, we didn't have anything else to do, so we went along with them to help sift. And it was maybe a 4 by 6 foot area on the ground, a small depression behind the garage. And it looked like it had been some fire going on there. There looked like a lot of the remains of burnt tires. There was the frame from some sort of car seat and some ash on the ground. The ground below the ash looked like it had the consistency of baked clay, like a ceramic. It was hard. It wasn't like you'd expect the ground to be after thunderstorms a few days later, so it looked like a burn area, and we sifted that just as we had been sifting the burn barrel contents. All right. Put it on the screen. We'll get into a little more detail in just a second. We're going to have one photograph marked to assist you in talking about this matter. Exhibit number 132, marked for identification. Officer Wiegert is handing you a photograph. Would you identify that for us, please? First of all, tell us what the exhibit number is. Exhibit 132. Thank you. What is Exhibit 132? It's a photograph showing the burn area behind the garage. You can't see the garage in the photo, but you can see the frame from the car seat. There's one tire there and some tools on the ground and some flags in the ground. All right, we have it now projected on our screen. What is projected? Is that Exhibit 132? That one's cropped more than this one is, but otherwise, yes. All right. The center area of this photo was on the screen. How about the larger screen over here to your left? Well, this one shows, you can see it better. There's a red building behind that tank. That doesn't show up well here. You can see the windows on the photograph. Very good. Is that how about a zoomed out? Is that, yes, more accurate? That looks like the photograph. All right. And who participated in the processing of this burn pit? The three of us assisted, and the person in charge with that area was Tom Sturdivant, special agent with the Division of Criminal Investigations. All right, and tell us how you proceeded to process that pit. There were also additional officers present who assisted in the sifting process. I was the one who shoveled the materials from the ground up to the sifting platform, and then there were probably 4, 5, or 6 of us standing around the sifter at any time, collecting things and placing them in boxes. We sifted through all the ash and material that was in that area. Now, if you would describe for us exactly how the shovel was used to remove debris and other material from this pit and brought to the sifter. Tell us about how that was conducted. Okay, on the photograph there, we set the sifter up. It would be just past those red flags and just past the end of that frame from that car seat. The shovel we used was one that we carried with us for this purpose. The sifter we usually use is for exhuming grave sites. So we'll shovel out the material and sift through it looking for bones or bullets or whatever from a grave site. In this case, we had very hard ground on top of which was maybe from 0 to 6 inches of ashen material. It's a flat blade shovel, sort of like a garden spade, and that was used to sort of like a dustpan to scoop up the ash. And then I stood up, turned around, and took a step and set it on the screen. And then the people around the screen would pick through it. The smaller material would fall through the screen onto a tarp, and the larger material they would collect and put in a box. All right, what efforts did you undertake to ensure that you wouldn't damage or create any harm to any of the debris that was being recovered from the pit? Well, it was done carefully. I guess that's what I can say. We didn't look real hard at the materials we were collecting. My advice to the people around the sifter was, if you're not sure, just put it in the box. Someone else will figure that out later, what it is. So we didn't spend time picking at the things that we were collecting. The shovel, we had a hard surface. It's just pick up the ash with it. I mean, it wasn't like we had to dig and put your foot on it and push down and dig or anything. It wasn't necessary. So it was a pretty gentle process. Tell us about the sifting part of the process. It's a sort of like hardware cloth, and we carry it, 3 different grades of it. I think there's a 1/2-inch mesh, a 1/4-inch mesh, and an 1/8-inch mesh. And we put this material through the 1/4-inch mesh. So 1 scoopful at a time is placed onto the mesh, and the mesh is probably a 3 foot by 3.5 foot rectangular area. And then the 5 people would, with their gloved hands, I believe some of them had a mason's trowel. It's about this big triangular metal-shaped object with a handle to move the ash on the screen, spread it out, and then you can sort of tap the screen and it sort of jiggles the material and the finer particles fall through. All right. Did you or any of your team who participated in this process recognize any of the debris as human remains? We recognized it as remains for sure. There were things that looked like teeth, things that looked like bone, nothing bigger than the palm of my hand, but whether it was human remains or not, we weren't sure. Most of the items were very small? Yes, they were. All right. Approximately how long did this process last? Well, they had asked for the sifter for about 3 p.m., and we worked until it got dark. It was just after 5, so about 2 hours. All right. And what did you do at the scene as you wrapped up this processing for that evening? Well, once we had sifted all the materials, then we had what was collected in boxes. We packed that up. That was eventually turned over to Calumet County. The material that was fallen through the screen onto the tarp was also saved, and Tom Sturdivant took care of that. And we just cleaned up the sifter and put it away, and then we proceeded onto our next task. How was the material preserved that had fallen through the screen? It was fallen through onto a tarp, and it's my understanding that Tom Sturdivant was going to keep that. How he did that, I don't know. All right. In other words, you left that scene before the complete wrap-up, as it were, had undertaken? Yes. Was undertaken? All right. What was the next assignment, then, that you performed on this day, Tuesday, November 8th? We were then asked to do some luminol testing on a couple of residences. Steven Avery's residence, Chuck Avery's residence, and the garage next to Steven Avery's residence. All right, let me stop you there. And if you would be so kind as to explain to us, first of all, what luminol is, and then, well, we'll start with that. What is luminol? Okay, luminol is a chemical that when it comes in contact with blood will glow. So we use it to find traces of usually highly diluted blood or very small blood amounts. If there's larger amounts of blood or whatever, they're usually pretty obvious because blood has a distinctive color. We had already searched the Avery residence for looking for a blood stain pattern, and we hadn't found any. We had found blood staining, but nothing that would indicate a pattern. There had been talk about luminoling the residence earlier in the week. I had recommended that be the last thing you do in an attempt to find blood. This treatment with luminol will leave a luminol residue, and then you don't really want to be going in there and doing other things after you've luminoled. And treatment with luminol should come after a thorough visual search. It shouldn't be your first attempt. All right. So we went in and luminoled the residence. We found just a couple of stains on the couch that we had missed visually. We then luminoled the garage, and we found a lot of luminol reactive stains in the garage that we couldn't confirm with another test. All right, let me stop you there and ask. You told us just a few moments ago that luminol reacts to blood? Yes. Let me ask this. Does luminol chemically react with substances other than blood? Yes, it does. What substances will the luminol react to? It reacts with actually quite a few different substances. One thing would be a shiny penny is what we quite often use as a positive to make sure the luminol is working okay. If the penny glows, the luminol is working. It's actually the iron in the heat molecule in the blood that the luminol is reacting with. So pennies, copper, lead. I've never seen it with rusty iron type stains, but it's reported that it might. The big thing that we see quite often is cleaning reagents that have some sort of bleach in them. It reacts quite vigorously with that. Of all the substances that you mentioned, the blood, the copper, iron, and bleach, which are the substances, which substances did the luminol react most vigorously to? Well, with the bleach, but depending on the concentration of the bleach. All right. Does it react with gasoline or paint thinner? No, it doesn't. All right. Okay, let's return then back to the garage. You indicated there were several spots where you had luminol reactions. Let's pick it up there and have you tell us about it, please. Most of the spots looked like sort of like a maybe inch and a half diameter circle. When you do this, the glowing that comes from the luminol reaction is very weak. So you always want to do it in complete darkness if possible. And what you do is use a spritz bottle. You spray an area and you have a piece of chalk in your hand. In your other hand, if anything glows, you circle it, and you work through an area. And then you go back and sample those areas you've circled with chalk, and you do another more specific test for blood. It's called phenolphthalein. And if it reacts with the phenolphthalein, that's an indication that there may be enough material there to do DNA on, and then you would collect that. In the garage, only one area was right behind the vehicle that's on the screen there, was confirmed with phenolphthalein. You're referring to Exhibit 76 now, which is depicted on the screens? Yes. All right. And I believe there's a laser pointer right there in front of you. First of all, let's start with if you could use that computer animation, which is reflected in Exhibit 76, and probably easier to point to the larger screen. Point out the spot where you did have one positive reaction to phenolphthalein. You can't actually, I can't point to it because it's right below the back bumper of that vehicle. All right, on the floor. Okay. And there were other people there, and when we turned the lights back on and started checking the stains that we had circled in chalk, they said, yes, we had found that earlier visually. We had collected that one, so we didn't collect that. All right, because it had already been processed. It had already, by others, been collected. All right. Now, you indicated that there were several spots. If you can recall, approximately using the same diagram, if you would just briefly point to several of those spots where you did get luminol reactions, which did not test positive for phenolphthalein. I can't point to any specifically. All right. There were just small spots here and there, sort of a random distribution. Not a lot by the door, not a lot by the snowmobile. There was one area that did stand out. All right, what area was that? It was behind this tractor lawnmower here, and it wasn't just a small spot. It's maybe a 3x3 or 3x4 foot area that was more of a smeary, diffuse reaction with the luminol. The light was coming from seemingly everywhere, not just this little spot. Would that be something like a 3x4 foot oval? Was it a circular shape, square shaped, or any particular, well, irregular? It sort of went up into the debris here, so that would have been the extent of it, and then coming out sort of maybe oval on the open side. All right, when you made that observation, what did you do? We marked off the area in chalk and we saw the luminescence. Then later we went back and swabbed it, tried to confirm the presence of blood with phenolphthalein, and we could not. All right, just one moment. After you made the observation with respect to this larger area that reacted to the luminol, what did you do? After I made the observation? Yes. Well, upon seeing it, we marked off the perimeter with chalk. All right, and you tried the phenolphthalein test? Tried the phenolphthalein test. Did you report your findings to any of the law enforcement officers? Well, there were some in there with us. Do you recall who might have been with you that night? I do not recall their names. All right. They had been in there previously. They were the ones who told us that the stain behind the vehicle had already been collected. I see. All right. Your best estimate, approximately how many spots reacted to the luminol in that garage area? I would guess a dozen. All right. Now, you talked about the one large spot. The remaining spots, can you give us a range as to their varying size? I would say they were all inch or inch and a half diameter, smaller. All right. All 11 were in that inch to inch and a half range? Yes. All right. Attorney Fallon, I would move into intro evidence, the Exhibit 132, and the photograph, and tender the witness for cross-examination. The court, any objection to reception of 132? Attorney Freeman, no, Judge. The court, it is received. You may cross.